Mr. Kip Sorensen, I see you. I see you change some things up. You're mixing it up with a new hat today, man.
Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
up with that?
Well, I don't know. I'm trying to be liked by other individuals. It helps on my self-esteem. I focus on the acceptance
luck.
of others versus the acceptance of self. That's
You know,
my quote.
it's. I like that. I like that. That's really going to serve you well and lead to a lot of fulfillment in your life. Um, you know what's funny is people were joking about that, and most people hear that and they think, yeah, like I don't care about what other people think. Yet deep down, we all are impacted to some degree by what other people think. So much so that it dictates our behaviors and our thoughts and what we wear and everything else. And then, interestingly enough, will change for other people. And then what you come to the realization of is that even if you change, a new subset of people won't like you. So you're never
Yeah,
going to please everybody. So just do what you want to do and let the chips fall where they may.
totally. And anyone that's listening that goes, yeah, Ryan, maybe for most people, but that's not applicable to me. Complete BS.
Totally.
Look at everything that you do to look good and avoid looking bad. It controls how you dress. It controls the way you speak to people. It controls who you hang out with. Like, it is at the very center of being human. Now, here's the beautiful part. I don't think it's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. It is just what it is, but it's really important that we realize that we're doing it. So at least own the fact and understand that that condition is affecting you.
Yes, agreed. And also, I would say that it is actually a good thing. You said it's not good or bad. I believe in the right context, it actually can be very good. So,
Yeah.
for example, I care about what my wife thinks of me, which because I love her, I want to serve her, I want to support her. We have a relationship. I've committed to her. Same thing with my kids. Same thing with you. Not to the degree of love,
Yeah.
but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Thanks for clarifying.
yeah, I just want to make sure people know like where we're going with this. But that builds in an added level of accountability into my life because look, I'm not gonna succumb to every single wish or demand. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that her thoughts of me and the way I show up is a consideration in the way that I show up. So this whole zero F's mentality it's arrogant, it's prideful, and you're potentially cutting yourself off from opinions that actually matter. And there are opinions of others or from others that matter. Specifically those you've committed to, those you love, those you want to support, and those you want to be like in some capacity.
Totally. And we've mentioned this in the past. All opportunities present themselves to you more likely through someone.
100%.
Opportunities show up
100%
because
of them.
of another person. So if you don't give a crap about anyone thinks, well, guess what? You don't have any opportunities coming your way.
Sure. Yeah.
How's
Yeah, I
that
think
for a
there's
rant before we get started?
Man, well, it was important, and I think there's just a healthy level of it, like everything. You do it in moderation, and you do it to the degree that it serves you and other people. And if it becomes a problem, so much so that you're changing who you are, and it's not fulfilling or uplifting or potentially destructive, okay, that's the line. And I think we can all assess what that line is individually.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the questions. Let's tell the guys what
Yeah.
we're doing. We're fielding questions specifically today from the Iron Council, which is our exclusive brotherhood, 500 plus members. Man, we're growing. I don't know if you saw, I think I just invited 9 or 10 new members into the Iron Council just a day or two ago, and it seems like the trend is continuing. So we'd love to have you guys there. We're doing challenges, we're doing assignments, we're having discussions, we're holding each other accountable. There's camaraderie, and there's brotherhood, there's a framework. All the things that you would need in order to accomplish more in your life. And the questions you're going to hear today are from a select few that ask some questions inside of our exclusive brotherhood, the Iron Council. So you can check it out at orderofman.com/Iron Council. We're not creative here. Just if you want to find something, it's orderofman.com/whatever it is you want to find. You'll find it.
In fact, you could probably just try out that /whatever and maybe even find some stuff that we don't even tell you about.
Yes. Did I? Yes, true. Or that we even know about. Did I finally break you of the bad habit of saying / or / or whatever it is that you got yourself into saying?
Possibly. No, I made a conscious decision that I was no
Sure
longer
you
going to do
did.
that. It has nothing to do
Sure
with you.
you did.
Yeah.
All
That's
right.
my
Fair
own
enough.
I'm my own man.
We'll pretend that that's true. All right. What are the questions?
Nicholas Bean, how do you see the link between habits and character?
The link. So he's not asking for the distinction. He's asking for the link between them.
Yeah.
Well,
And
I've
perhaps
always
the distinction should be mentioned maybe
sure,
for
sure.
listeners. Yeah.
I've always subscribed to the belief that your character is what you do when no one is looking,
Mm.
and and there's no maybe even potential consequence. Like I may never get caught for doing this thing. Well, what you do in that moment defines your character. Because if there is a consequence, and you're making that decision based on, well, I'm going to get caught or I'm going to get in trouble, then maybe your character is out of whack. So I look at it as character as some, I don't want to just say something, but I want to say some characteristic of who we are. It's the ability to do what we say we're going to do, the ability to follow through on what we've committed to doing, the ability to live in accordance with what we believe and how we want to show up. Then you get deeper than that and more specific. It's the habits that you do on a daily basis that end up eventually defining your character. So if I, for example, in the morning, wake up and the very first thing I do is hit the snooze button, that's out of character. It's a habit that I've adopted in my life. It's a behavior that has become so second nature that I no longer think about it. It's no longer intentional. And therefore, I am out of integrity or out of character because I believe that I should get up early and get started and go work out and do the things I want to be doing. So character is, or I should say it this way, habits are what you do, and that ultimately defines what type of character you have.
Yeah. And character could be comprised of more things than just your habits, right? You may make conscious decisions that aren't based upon habit, and that those also play a part in defining your character. Would you say that?
I think that's fair.
Okay. Cool. All right, Rob Mayett. I'm finding that I'm starting to get a handle on building consistent morning routine, but every evening is still a mess for me. There's always some meeting or activity needed to get done, and the kids throw everything out of the window. What would you recommend for adding more structure and consistency to my evening routines, or does it make more sense to me just to add more to the morning and give up on having a robust, consistent evening routine altogether?
I think you can have a routine and still build in flexibility. And that sounds like what's going on here is that maybe your routine is so rigid. In the morning, I think generally it can be more rigid because your kids probably aren't up. So that variable of having the kids in the mix changes the dynamic of how you complete your routine, obviously. So if you've introduced a new variable, let me back up. If you want to figure out what's the difference between the morning routine and the evening routine, document everything you're doing and the environment in which you find yourself and just find the discrepancy. So why can you be locked in the morning and not locked in at night? And maybe you come to the conclusion that it's your children. So Kip, you and I have talked about it at length. We don't use excuses to get out of the things that we know we should be doing and the things that we want to be doing. That goes back to our character question earlier. Reasons, however, are different. So there's a reason, there's a variable here, your kids. So an excuse would be saying, oh man, my kids they're little punks and they're out of control and I just can't do anything, so I'll just do it in the morning, like I won't worry about it tonight. Excuse. Reason would be, oh man, my kids are wild in the evening and they're out of control and we're trying to get them into bed and it like makes it really difficult to do my evening routine. So ... And that ... is, what am I going to do about it in order to make it more flexible, in order to maybe do my routine a little bit later or put the kids down a little earlier, or even potentially give them a routine so that they're not all wild and crazy before they're going to bed. So it's the difference between excuses and reasons. To me, based on the limited information that we have, it sounds like your kids are the variable that's making the difference between the two. For me, the best thing I've done with regards to my children, because I tend to lose some patience, and especially if I have other things I want to do, is I build in a lot of margin into my routines or sequences or activities or whatever else it might be. I've noticed that with my kids, if I'm stacked from task to task to task to task to task, that I can't be fully present with my kids and get those tasks done. Then I get upset because they're distracting me from what I feel like I should be doing. Then there's guilt because I'm not doing what I should be doing. And there's also guilt because I'm not giving my kids the attention they deserve, or I'm yelling at them. And it just becomes this downward spiral that is a big cycle, and it's not healthy. So what I've done is just build in some margin before and after. Like, for example, if I know I want to read and usually I read from 7 to 7:30, I might say, hey, I've got a reading window from 6:45 to 7:45. And my goal is to get 20, 30 minutes in there. But if, it's taking 15 extra minutes longer because I'm playing Legos with my boy, then I'm not going to lose my cool because that variability through margin was built into the plan and scenario.
Yeah.
Does that help?
Yeah, I think so. And you said something about routine for your kids. Well, part of this is enlisting them. So in your example, I think is a perfect example of you want to read from 7 to 7:45. Guess what? Family reading time.
Right.
Is from 7 to 7:45. You all sit around in a room when everyone's reading a book. That's great for them too.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I will say on that, Kip, is one thing that I've noticed when we implement things like that, family reading, for example, is that the kids will initially buck the system. Just like you will, just like I will, just like anybody else who's implementing some new thing in their life. You're going to buck that because it's not common and it's not comfortable and it hasn't been formed into a habit yet. So just because your kids might not initially be on board with family reading or family scriptures or family study or whatever the thing is, just maintain that course and let them get comfortable with, oh, this is what we do from 7 to 7:30 is just. And over the course of, a week or two, you're going to notice that they're not complaining as much and that they just get it and they may even initiate it because that's what's expected.
Yeah, that becomes the standard.
Right.
All right, Roger Taylor, I'm working on writing a book on applying principles of Stoic philosophy to parenting. Are there any areas that you feel would be the most beneficial to cover?
I'm not like a deep Stoic necessarily, so I would just assume that you maybe have covered all of them already. But patience is certainly something. Understanding of emotions, asking yourself why you feel the way that you feel. I noticed that at times when my kids are rambunctious or not doing what they're supposed to be doing or giving me lip about doing the chores or sweeping off the back porch or whatever they're doing. Like I tend to just get really frustrated. Rather than just take a deep breath. Why are you feeling this way? And seeing what's causing this right now. And then how can you address, this is important. How can you communicate with your kids in a way that will ultimately move the mission forward? Because what happens to me, and I'm assuming a lot of other guys as well, fathers as well, is that we end up losing our cool and we yell at them, and guess what happens? They do it. Right? So you say, hey, guys, I need you to shovel the snow off the back deck. Just do it. Right? So you yell at them, and then what do? They go get the shovels with tears in their eyes, and they go shovel the back deck. You're like, perfect, worked. But did it? Right? Did it really work? No, you actually undermined your own efforts, not in the short term, but in the long game. You undermined your own effort. So rather than losing your cool, think about, okay, let me figure out a way to communicate this in an effective way that will move the long-term strategy and mission forward. With kids, for example, the mission is to render yourself obsolete. People don't that's not a comfortable thought. People actually, I posted this on Instagram or Twitter or somewhere the other day, and there were some people who got upset. They're like, well, that's a crappy way to live. No, it's a great way to live. Like, I'm not saying that you become unimportant. I'm not saying that you become non-existent. What I'm suggesting is that your job as a father is to raise self-sufficient, independent adults. So your communication style should lend not towards them shoveling off the back deck. That's part of it. But your communication style should lend to raising self-sufficient, independent adults. And that is something that I have had to learn the hard way, and I continue to learn the hard way, and I'm continuing to work on, is communicating in an effective way that will move the mission forward long-term as opposed to a short-term victory, like shoveling or vacuuming or putting their clothes away.
Yeah. I love that because, and I have the perfect example of that is it was a few weeks ago, my wife's telling one of the kids to do something. He's arguing or he disagreed. Mm-hmm. And the response was, don't argue with me, blah, 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 and do, right? And I thought, okay, hold on. So let's look at him as an adult. So we're teaching him as an adult that when your wife disagrees, you just do it. They actually don't sit down and have a constructive conversation saying, hey, I disagree with this and I need to understand why. So, and it's funny because that's how they determine how they're going to communicate as adults, is how we communicate with them as kids. And so we set him up to be bulldozed. Oh, okay. That's how you address things. When there's an argument, you don't talk about it. You don't bring it up. And I just do what's told. And I sweep it under the rug and I get pissed off and I walk off and mumble underneath my breath. And it's like,
I wonder if this is where the happy wife, happy life mentality comes from. Like, if I can just keep her happy and keep her quiet, and like kind of tide her over, then I'll be good.
Totally.
So AKA, just do what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah. AKA don't have a voice, bottle it up and just and then blow up eventually at one point because you're having no self-expression and you're tired of being railroaded.
Which is understandable.
Yeah, totally. That's not Roger's question. He is about Stoicism, though. I think one Stoic principle, I can't remember the name of it, but it's like negative visualization. And I tried that in regards to, the thought process of losing my child or my children at any moment. And it really forced me to show up differently when I said goodbye to them going to school. And when I was away from them, it just changed things. So I love that principle because it really helps center me in regards to how precious life is and how grateful I should be for the present, for the moment.
Right. That's even that concept of memento mori. Remember that you have to die, right? There's that. Another application of that I had thought of just the other day is I was holding my son and my wife and I were talking, and we got talking about how there will come a point in our lives as their parents that we will put them down. Like, I'll hold my son, who's 3 right now, that at some point I will put him down and I will never pick him up again.
I know.
And the sad part about it is I won't know that that's the last time I'll ever pick him up.
Totally.
I made this comment, this comment that we're talking about now on Instagram, and I got a lot of feedback like, oh, that's depressing. Oh, that sucks. Oh, I'm crying. In a way, it's kind of like, yeah, that's the point, because now hopefully that thought, negative visualization, will drive you to new behaviors, which is picking up your children often, laughing, giggling, rolling, wrestling, playing, reading books, doing the things that you should be doing, because the time we have with them is very, very precious and fleeting.
Yeah.
By the way, if you guys aren't following us on Instagram, I'm at Ryan Michler. My last name is Michler. It's really, really been growing over there. And part of the reason is because of that London Real interview. Like, that thing has blown up. I never expected that we would get so much visibility through that. So at Ryan Michler on Instagram. What's yours, Kip?
At Kip Sorensen, KIPPSORENSEN.
Perfect. So me and Kip are going to have a contest or something for new followers and see how he can do. He might be able to kick my ass at jiu-jitsu, but I can get more followers than him. As if that matters.
Well, I'll just roll extra hard if you end up winning the Instagram thing. He's just joking. Hey,
did you hear the AMA from last week?
Yeah, I haven't. Well, I immediately woke up this morning and I start seeing some posts on our internal system for the Iron Council. Yeah, about Bubba kicking my butt or something. I'm like, what is going on? So I haven't listened to the whole thing yet.
Yeah, but you know what's funny? Let me tell you this.
It's coming up.
Yeah, listen to it. But what's funny is he wrote it, and he says what he was trying to say was he's getting you to ask me how bad he was going to kick my butt. But the way that I read it was like how bad he's going to kick your butt. And I said on the thing, I'm like, dude, that'll never happen. You are not going to destroy Kip. And now he's backpedaling. He's like, no, I didn't mean Kip. I meant you. I don't mess with Kip.
That's funny.
So now he's backpedaling. Bubba, we know what you initially meant. We know that you got scared and that now you feel like you need to face me rather than Kip. I understand. The outcome is going to be the same regardless if it's Kip or me. But I do understand not wanting to roll with Kip.
That's funny. Hey, I'm humble enough to realize that I can be caught by anybody, including probably Bubba. So
you can. Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool.
Moving on. That's funny. And great job on London Real. Actually,
Oh, thank you.
I watched that on YouTube the other day, and it was great. It was really great. I liked it.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it was a big honor for me to be on that because Brian's been really instrumental in and influential in a lot of what we've done here with Order of Man. And he's somebody I've been following for a very long time. And he's got a great platform. He's got very engaged people, for better or worse. You know, I got a lot of positive feedback, a lot of negative feedback. Yeah. But you know what? Everybody's passionate, and that's what Brian does. And to be included in his lineup was incredible. So if you haven't checked it out, you can check it out on YouTube or podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. Just type London Real and then my name, Ryan Mickler, and you'll find it.
Yeah, it was unfortunate that he's like, whether good or bad. You know, I'm like, what's
Wait, what do you mean?
Well, at the beginning, he was like, you know, it kind of set the tone to like, there might be some controversial things being mentioned. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about, but.
Well, not to you, it wouldn't be controversial, but as somebody who thinks differently than you, I mean, and Brian does a good job at that too. That's an interesting thought, is like, we think, well, that's not controversial. Yeah, because you believe what that individual just said. So of course it doesn't sound controversial. But if you believe something else, then it would sound controversial, obviously.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, so he does that in a lot. And you know, it's like, you got to be careful, I think, I hate to use this term necessarily, but you got to be careful. It's like a influencer to pander and cater towards a select group of people. You know, I had a guy on Instagram just the other day. He was like, what did he say? Something ridiculous. Like, hey, you know, I believe a lot of what you're saying, but you know, you never talk about non-gender issues. I'm like, you can't be serious. This is a podcast called Order of Man. I'm like, and are non-gender issues, like just being a good human being, for example, important? Absolutely. And just because I talk about men's issues doesn't mean that comes at the expense of women's issues or just humanity's issues. It just happens to mean that I focus on the subset. So I basically told him, I said, look, if you don't like what we do, that's cool. Go find it somewhere else, or even better yet, throw your hat in the ring and create something that you feel like the world needs. Nobody's stopping you from doing that. But I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to pander to the squeaky wheel just because they're uncomfortable or offended or don't like it or have a little bone to pick about. I'm not doing it. I know what we stand for. I talk about what we stand for. I don't make apologies for it. And I feel like that is a healthy way to approach it.
Yeah. Well, and our mission is big enough. There's enough to talk about, right? Like we don't need to pander to these other discussion points because there's enough to address here.
Right.
So I think it takes away from the value of the primary message if we're trying to include women and these other things. Yeah, sure, those things are also maybe equally important, but that's just not the focus either.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. And you said it great. Those issues are also important, no doubt. They're just not what we focus on. And that's fine. You know, if you were to take a woodworking shop, for example, you wouldn't be offended if you went in there. Actually, somebody probably would. If you went in there and you're like, I need a metal sign. They're like, all we do is wood.
That's not fair.
Right. Yeah. What any rational human being would do is they would just go next door to the metal shop. That's what most people would do. So it's really fascinating. It's like, well, can't you go to the metal shop and like buy their metal and then make the sign for me? It's like, it's just next door. Just go next door and you can do it yourself. No, they can't do that.
Yeah. It's funny how that is.
All right. It's not even funny. I mean, I know what you're saying, but it's disturbing.
Yeah. Well, and the immediate thought process of, well, how about women? Like from the perspective of that by the fact that we focused on men, that means what we just said is not applicable to women, right? Like,
or that it's excluding women.
Yeah, exactly. It's weird how that's like the default behavior nowadays.
My friend Zuby, who is on the podcast, I think we released his. In fact, I think his just came out yesterday. Anyways, I get them all mixed together. He had made an interesting post on Twitter, and he said, this is common for Twitter, but I think it's also increasingly common for real life, is he's like, I could post a picture of my dog and how much I love my dog, and Twitter would say, well, why do you hate cats?
Exactly.
I like cats. I just love my dog. That's all it means. Like, don't read into it.
Yeah.
All right, we've got off on a tangent here.
Okay, Brett.
Like speaking from stoicism to being like upset that people are offended. So it's like we're not being very stoic right now.
Yeah, opposite of stoic. All right, Brett Hobman. After spending 14 years working away from home with four with a family of my own, I took a job at home that hasn't met the work-life balance or earning expectations. I have an opportunity to go back to the field in a position higher up the totem pole that I was working before, and I took the new job. Man, I'm slaughtering this. All right, so ultimately, 14 years working away from home, he has an opportunity presenting himself. If I go back, it would be 2 weeks on, 1 week off, and my earnings would be almost double what I'm making now. What are your thoughts on working away from home as it results to protect, provide, and preside? I guess we could have just read that last sentence.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the context is good. I would say go for it. You know, if you feel like this is something that's going to be good for you. And I mean, 2 weeks on, 1 week off. I don't know what the ramification of the work is. I don't know if you're like 24 hours on. I don't know if you're gone. I don't really know what that means. So maybe there needs to be some more specificity there. But yeah, I mean, it's fully possible to be a protector, provider, and presider if you're gone. I mean, millions and millions of men do that every day. Kip, you do that, right? You get up, you do your thing, you say goodbye to the family, you go into your office, you do your thing at the office, and then you come home, and then you're with the family. And I think it's fully possible. We've been doing it for a very, very long time, hundreds of years. Those are my thoughts. Like I don't think that's at odds with being involved and being connected and being the father that you want to be. I commend you for wanting to be that father. I commend you for even having this thought in your mind. But I think there might be just some misunderstandings. I don't know if that's the right word. Just some misunderstandings about your ability to be those things, even though you might be working outside of the home. Maybe it's guilt.
Yeah. And there's lots of
I was just going to say, you know, you've been at home for a period of time and you've become more connected than just because you're there, proximity, and now you're leaving. And so you're like, oh, am I leaving my kids high and dry? And so there might be an element of guilt there. I get that. I can certainly understand that. I would say if that's the case, then, you know, have clear conversations, communicate effectively about what's going on and why, and then have your boundaries in place and make sure that you are as present as possible when you are home, because it's very, very valuable for you and the kids and your wife and everybody else who's involved.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe there needs to be an enlistment conversation with the wife, right? Maybe she's kind of giving him a little bit of a hard time with this approach, you know, and you guys need to get on the same page. The only
maybe I would just say, sorry, Kip, I just got to interrupt you there real quick, because maybe, like, we don't know.
Yeah.
So I would just say, if that is an issue, then yes, definitely address that.
Yeah, totally. Well, and I think that there's a lot of ways that we can be intentional with our circumstances, right? You have technology at your hands. So if you're away for 2 weeks, you know, video calls every night with the kids, saying prayers over the phone. I mean, there's a lot that we can do to actually really stay connected despite our work schedules. But it requires intentionality, just like everything else in life. So
it was funny. We had a friend over just the other night, and her husband is in the Middle East. He's on a mission in the Middle East, and we were talking about something, and it was her birthday, and she wanted to show him the cake that my wife had made for her. And so she gets on, she calls him, and she's like, I don't know if he'll answer. And he answered, and it was like 2 a.m. or something. This is some crazy time there, and he's like, hello, you know, he's all tired and everything, and he's like, what? She's like, look at this cake, and he's like, awesome. What do you want? She's like, that's it. I wanted to show. It was funny. Anyways, the reason I brought that up is because when she hung up, Trish and I looked at each other like, that is amazing that you could just call him, because in 2005, when I was in Iraq, that's not how it was at all. We had this little I can't even remember what we called it, but this is like little technology center, and it had a few computers, and then it had maybe 10 to 15 phones, and you had to wait in line to go to a little booth to sit and talk with whoever it is you wanted to talk with. But it wasn't like just pick up your cell phone and give them a call. So I guess the point I'm making is technology is amazing. To your point, utilize it.
Yeah. All right, Dennis Morris, let's keep it light. What tradition are you most looking forward to this Christmas? What was your best Christmas ever?
Hmm. The best tradition. I don't think we have a whole lot of traditions outside of the ordinary. You know, you have like cutting down a tree, opening a present the night before. Usually my wife gets us matching pajamas. Like that's kind of fun. We read the same books everybody else reads. We watch the same movies everybody else watches.
Die Hard. Yeah.
Die Hard. You know, my 6-year-old, she just loves Die Hard. Um, I don't I don't think we have any like unique. Do you have anything unique? Like any unique tradition that you're like, this is probably
We
exclusive
do
to
it.
us?
Yeah. Yeah. We do a Christmas Eve dinner with all her family. And then we actually do a talent show.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
it's the expectation that all the grandkids have a talent that they're
Yeah,
sharing.
that's
And
cool.
sometimes
I
it's
like
goofy
that.
and funny, but well, that's about it really though.
We do that. Not this year because we're not around family, but we do a Christmas Eve dinner and we do a white elephant gift exchange, but it's gag gifts, so it's just funny
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean the same type of thing. Best Christmas ever. I remember one year I must have been think about this here for a second. I must have been 11 or 12. Yeah, 11 or 12. And I got a 49ers baseball hat and I got a bike. And for whatever reason, man, that had just made my entire life. Oh, you know what else I got? I got a 49ers jacket that went with the 49ers hat. And it was ugly but awesome gold jacket. And it said 49ers across the chest, like a varsity jacket. And it was gold and it said
Yeah. Yeah.
49ers and it zipped up the front. Oh, man, I love that thing. That was awesome. Another memorable Christmas was when my son, my first son was born, like getting him gifts and just being excited about getting him involved and just stuff like that. Like he was too little. I think he would have been, I don't know, 7 or 8 months. But things like that, I remember. Those are a couple that stand out right offhand.
Yeah. I have a couple. I'll choose a kid one actually. So my favorite Christmas as a kid. So we were the charity family, the poor family in the
Were you
neighborhood.
really?
Yeah, yeah. And we were living down in St. George at the time, and like the neighborhood bought toys and put them in black bags and made us blankets. And it's funny that a kid at the time I was in sixth grade, I was excited about my blanket that someone gave me for Christmas. Like I thought it was super cool. And we're pretty poor, so that was like a really cool Christmas.
Yeah.
And it was really meaningful. Like it felt really special. Like you could see my mom was glowing about the idea. You know what I mean? Because it was unexpected for all of us. And so
That's cool.
that's a Christmas that sticks with me.
Yeah, as you were saying, that's cool. That is really cool. As you were saying that, I remembered another one. We did one year we did the Soldiers for Santa or something, whatever it's called. And so we
Yeah.
dressed up in our uniforms and our unit went around and delivered toys to the families and the kids. Like it was Christmas, it must have been Christmas morning or Christmas Eve morning. And we delivered all these presents and that was really cool. The kids came up and they saw these soldiers with toys. They were so excited. We had one family, man, the lady was so rude. I remember she was so rude, but the overwhelming majority of the people were just like so grateful. The kids were excited. It was awesome, man. It was really cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
The we're giving you a bunch, Dennis. The other Christmas that I think was really substantial. It was one of the more difficult Christmases I ever had. It was right after my divorce. It was my first Christmas by myself. And I didn't have the kids that first Christmas. And like, I think it was literally on Christmas Eve or the day before, I called my brother. He was living, I was down in Phoenix. He lived in St. George. How long of a drive is that? Maybe like a 6-hour drive.
6 hours.
from
I'd say
Vegas. Yeah.
roughly 6 hours. Yeah.
And so I called him a couple days before and said, "Hey, I'm heading up to mom and dad's for Christmas. Do you mind if I crash at your place Christmas Eve?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, sure." And I ended up sneaking in the house at like 1 a.m. in the morning or 2 a.m. in the morning, crashed on some kid's floor. And I heard I heard their kids wake up super early, you know what I mean? Cause it's Christmas morning. Right. And I got 3 gifts, and I still have these 3 gifts. One was my brother's wife made me pajamas, pajama pants, made them. And she's like, sorry, I didn't have very much time, so they're way too long.
Oh yeah.
But she's like, I ran out of time, right? Because I gave them like
Right.
less than a day notice that I was showing up. So she made these pajama pants, which was like awesome. Then my brother gave me a kind of a rustic original, like kind of pocket knife, and then a hand drill for making fires made out of yucca and willow. And it was actually in brain tanned, like it had a sheath for it made out of elk hide. And I just remember, and they were so excited to see Uncle Kip, and you know what I mean? And it was a really great Christmas, but most importantly, I think it was amazing because I was so grateful. I was super, super humbled, and being present with him and his family, my brother and his family, was just exactly what I needed in that moment of feeling sorry for myself and being alone.
Yeah.
For Christmas. Yeah.
No doubt, man. That's a hard thing. Cool.
So, which is a good reminder, everybody. Like, if you have people that you know that are alone this Christmas, reach out, because this is the kind of the time and season that some people struggle, and make sure that those in your life aren't spending this holiday alone.
Good call.
Yeah. All right, Bobby Javanik. Ryan, what is your perspective on surrendering to God when it comes to faith as a man? I've been told that when trouble hits, I need to surrender and give it to God. I can't wrap my head around it, as it seems like something a weak person would do by sitting on the sidelines and not taking action.
I get this question, man. I really get this question. It's a tough one. And when you say it the way you're saying it, it sounds as if, well, I could see why you'd have questions about it, because you're assuming or making the conclusion that surrendering to God is a passive thing. And I've heard so many men talk about this. Well, if it's in God's will, if it was meant to be, then it'll just happen. And I do not subscribe to those statements at all.
Great.
We have been given our gifts and our talents and abilities and blessings and opportunities and so much, but ultimately God can't act for us. We have to do those things ourselves. So I think surrendering to God is not a passive thing. It's having some faith, knowing that God knows you. He knows your heart. He knows what's best for you. He's not going to put something in front of you that you aren't capable of dealing with. And in fact, he's already given you all of the tools and the resources and the connections and opportunities that you need in order to move past where you might be feeling right now. So it's a much more assertive way to look at your life. It's not passive, like, oh, if God wants it to be, like, he'll
throw my hands
land me
up,
a job.
yeah.
Like, I don't have to go out and look for a job, because if God wants it to be, then like somebody will just call me. Like, that's not going to work. What it means is that you've got to go out and look for jobs and look for opportunities and network and work your network and turn your resumes and go through all of the hassle that is searching for a job, and have faith that he will create some opportunities. He will open some doors for you. He will put some plans in place and some pieces in movement in order for you to accomplish or have what it is you're after. So it's not passive. In fact, it's very much assertive. Praying, reading the scriptures, using your gifts and talents and abilities, going out and doing the work that you know how to do. That to me is surrendering to God, like doing what we have been instructed and commanded to do, not sit around passively waiting for some miraculous thing to happen to us. That to me is not surrender to God. If anything, that is at direct odds with what God has suggested we do. And it's an insulting, right? Like, think about it in your context. Think about if you gave somebody this like really great advice, right? So Kip, I'm having struggles in my marriage, for example, and I really respect you and your wife and your relationship together. And I go to you and I'm like, Kip, like, I'm really having this difficult time in my marriage. I'm struggling. And you sit down with me, we go to dinner, we go to a game, we have a fight night or a movie, whatever it is. And you spend a whole lot of time invested in me. And you're like, Ryan, here's some thoughts, and consider this question and consider this. And we just spend a lot of time, and you go through that with me. And then I'm like, oh man, thank you, Kip. And I don't do anything with it. I just go back into the same pattern that I always did. How would that make you feel? You'd feel used.
Yeah, totally.
Because you were, right? But if on the other hand, I went back and I tried all these things, and whether or not my marriage got better, but I tried, right? I tried dating her and courting her, and tried to, work on myself, like all the things that you suggested. And then I came back to you and I'm like, hey, Kip, I really tried these things, and I really appreciate you taking time, and thank you for this. Much more assertive. How would that make you feel?
Yeah, it makes you feel great.
Make me feel great because you help somebody.
And I'd want to serve you more.
I think that relationship with God is very much the same way. Like, we have all of this stuff at our disposal and you're not using it. It's like, I'm not going to read. I'm not going to pray. I'm not going to look for opportunities. I'm not going to use my talents and abilities that I've been blessed with and given. So like, what else you got? like that's not good enough. That is good enough. You just have to use it.
Yeah, totally. I think for Bobby, obviously he's a religious guy. I think the story of Job is a perfect example of someone that was holy and righteous, and his world fell apart. And through that process, it was to become even more holy. It was for his benefit to become better. And so part of the surrender that I think, it's trusting and having faith, and I like faith as a hope, right? That this is for my good. And I'm going to trust the process, that I am going to grow from this and become even better, because I'm going to follow the process in which the Lord has given me. And I also think the other aspect of surrender for Christians is really around the atonement. That the idea that, hey, guess what? I may act, I may put effort, and I may put action, and I may come up short. But I'm going to surrender and trust in the fact that I can, through the atonement, repent and ultimately, be forgiven of my mistakes and my shortcomings, and trust in the Lord that he will provide assistance and guidance. But like you said, I can provide assistance and guidance to you, but action is still required nonetheless.
Right. I like that. I want to take this in a little bit different direction for just a minute, because I want to talk to the guys who maybe they don't believe in God or they aren't religious. And let's talk about this just from a practical or secular approach.
Totally.
So bad things happen to good people. And I get so tired of hearing people say things like, if you just hustle and grind and put in the time, then everything will work out. Not necessarily.
Yeah, you may still get cancer. Your parents are still going to die someday.
Right.
And life is going to suck.
Your wife's going to leave you, or you're going to go bankrupt, or you're going to get in an accident. I mean, things happen, and it is what it is. Yeah. But I look at life as a series of tests, and whether you want to believe that it's God, which is what I happen to believe, or you want to believe that it's the universe or some other higher power or just evolution. When you are faced with a difficult situation, I consider it a test. And I'm just trying to put a framework around this. Let's say that you're at a level 5 performance right now. In order to get to a level 6, you have to prove that you're capable of a level 6 performance or the level 6 results. And in order to get the level 6 results, it's like on a video game. You have to face the boss, right? You don't get to level 6 until you face the level 5 boss. Yeah. And the level 5 boss is not, in real life, ugly and painful and torturous even at times. But that's the only way you get to level 6. And if you think about it from that framework, I think you'll have an easier time keeping your head in the game, knowing that you're being tested right now to prove that you're ready for level 6. And here's what's going to happen with the test. You're either going to fail and you're going to stay at level 5 because you're not ready for level 6 yet, or you're going to succeed and you're going to go to level 6. But guess what happens when you're ready to go to level 7? The level 6 boss is harder than the level 5 boss. So, and I talked about this in a previous podcast. You want to elevate your problems. If you have easy problems, it means you're at level 1 or 2. If you have very difficult, complex problems, it means you're at 8, 9, 10, whatever. You guys understand the framework. It's a test. And if you prove yourself worthy of the next level, you will pass the test. If you're not worthy, you won't pass the test, and you'll have to experience the test at some point in the future or continue to go through the current test.
Yeah. And I use this even on silly things in my life, right? It's like, okay, I'm getting fired up because my kids don't keep their room clean. And I immediately go, hold on, I can't deal with a kid not having his room clean, but I'm supposed to deal with bigger things at work. Like, seriously, Kip, like, get your shit together. Right. And so I kind of use these other things that kind of rub me wrong, is like, hey, if I can't deal with this, I'm in no position to be dealing with something else. Right. And Jordan Peterson has alluded to this as well. Like, one of his quotes is about like something about having your home in order before you go address other things. Right. It's like, man, you got to be able to address these smaller things and see those as tests, as a opportunity to grow.
There's a quote that I like. It's again, I butcher quotes, but I do my best. And I think it goes like this: you can tell the size of a man by the size of the things that bother him. You can tell the size of a man by the size of the things that bother him. If you're bothered by trivial nonsense, you're not ready to be bothered by life-changing tests that could drastically alter the course of your life for the better.
Yeah.
All right. Let's drive on.
All right. Lyle Montgomery, how do you deal with a friend that has turned slightly toxic, who historically has been an asset yet is slowly becoming a drain? Do you cut your losses, or do you honor the history and try to work through things and weather the storm until they get past their issues?
I would be very careful with the honor the history thing. You know, you can think fondly on previous times. You can think fondly of an individual and how they were. You can think fondly about the relationship that you once had. But if you start buying into this misguided sense of loyalty, you really tee yourself up for some potential threat. And you have to be very, very careful of that. We had some friends over here the past several days, and we were reminiscing about life, 15 years ago, 18 years ago, and the stupid things that we did, right? And it was nice because we've been able to maintain a relationship, and my friend has been successful in his own right, and I've been successful, and we can share ideas and have these conversations like we never stop talking. There's other people that you're just going to grow out of, and it's sad and it's unfortunate and it's too bad, but it is what it is. It's when we start thinking that, or having the expectation that your relationships, all of them, are supposed to last forever, that we get into trouble. Some are meant to last forever, and others are just a brief moment in time. Hey, we had this relationship. Kip, I'd like to continue a relationship in some capacity with you over the years, but, we might be 20 years from now, and our relationship may have been, 5 years that we spent doing Order of Man together. And that's what it was. And it was good, right?
Yeah.
So there's that side of it. The other side of it is, I do believe that if your friend is struggling and you have a relationship with this individual and you care about him and he cares about you, then yeah, I think you have a sense of obligation and duty to help to the degree that you can. And if you notice that through your help and assistance, through coaching and mentoring and being an example and involving him in engaging activities, that he's improving, good on you and good for him. But if you notice yourself continuing to do this over and over again, and him not improving, or him getting worse, or turning into a bad friend, at that point, it might be the stage where you think, you know what? That relationship was good then. I can see it not being good now, and move on and on your way. People evolve, people change, people devolve. Is that a word? Devolve. You got to take it in stride and take it for what it is.
Yeah. It's really interesting how the human condition, we have a tendency when we categorize something or a relationship, that we put them in the box and we think that they'll stay there. Right? Like, I do it by default, right? Like, even when I read this, I think, he becomes toxic, period. Or is acting toxic, right? Like, the reality of it is this is life. It's not over. So if he's draining to the relationship, sure, he's draining right now. And maybe he gets his act together and 5 years from now, you guys have a great relationship again. And now it's awesome. Right. I mean, it's really interesting how we have a tendency to think that the negative decisions that people are making sets them on a path that's unrecoverable, that they'll never like be in a position ever again to have a solid relationship with you. It's like, well, no, that's just a time and a season. Right.
But let me say this though, too, Kip, is just because they go down a different path, positive or negative, I just want guys to understand you're not obligated to walk that path with them.
Yeah.
You may choose to for whatever reason, and that's your choice, but you're not obligated out of some sort of loyalty or friendship. You're not. You're obligated to make the choices that are going to serve you and the people that you care about best. And sometimes that means, Kip, I love you, brother. You got to walk this path alone. When you're ready to walk the path I'm walking, I will embrace you with open arms. It's that prodigal son type scenario.
Totally. And if you jump on the path with me, then that means that you're not on the path that I may need you to be on for me to come back.
Good point.
Right. I like that concept that if you bail with me, then no one is there, right, to kind of bring us back to it. And I don't know. It's just a really powerful way of seeing. I had a great conversation with an older man in my neighborhood the other day, and he was talking about he had a daughter that kind of fell away from the family, and and his language is, I lost my daughter. And the other guy in the conversation is, don't you put that on her. You're still alive. She's still alive. That's not final. And I'm like, that's a good point. Like, this is a season. Yeah, maybe you've temporarily lost them. Sure. But stay on the path, be there, support them, right? And their actions that obviously are positive for them, and see how it pans out, and be in a position to welcome them back when they're ready.
I want to get tactical on this because I think this question in some form has been brought up quite a bit. So I want to get tactical. If you do decide, hey, I want to continue to help this friend, I want to coach him along, I want him to be involved, I want to maintain a relationship, let's give some tactical tips and strategies here. I would say that the best thing you can do is invite him into your other circle.
Yeah.
We have circles, right? Kip, you and I run in some circles together through the Iron Council, maybe through some jiu-jitsu. Like, we run in some circles. But guess what? I have circles that you're not part of. And you have circles and spheres of influence that I'm not part of. So maybe I start to migrate just through evolution and life. I start to migrate to this other circle. But I'm like, hey, what about that guy? Invite him to your circle.
Yeah.
And what he's going to see is he's going to see very quickly what behavior is acceptable and what is not. And then it's up to him to decide, hey, Kip, this is what we're doing. Come with us. And you come with us a couple of times and you really enjoy it and you get better and you start to see things differently and you start improving your life. Or you're like, nah, dude, that's not for me. That's okay. I'm still going. When you're ready, we'll be here. Invite him into your other circle. Let him be influenced by you and also be influenced by the other men who are in your circle, who you admire, respect, and are pushing you in the direction you want to go.
Yeah. I've done this exact thing. There's been a couple times where I've had fight night at my house and I said, no wives, no kids, men only. And it was me inviting guys outside of the order of man circle that I felt I wanted to bring them in and invite them to that fight night so they could be around those kind of like-minded men and see the value in it. Like, I have done that specific thing.
Right.
And it's perfect.
It is perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, we do that with our events. Like, 80% of the guys that come to our events are either in the Iron Council or have been involved with Order of Man in some capacity for a long time. And then there's 20% of the guys who aren't or who are new. And I would say that 90% of them choose to stick around with the circle. The other 10%, for whatever reason, decide, nope, not for me, which is totally fine. I'm not stopping. I'm not turning around. I'm not altering the course of our path, but I will embrace them with open arms should they decide they want to walk this path and be in this circle again. And I don't think negatively. That's another thing. I don't think negatively of these individuals. If somebody's like, no, I don't want to be part of that circle, cool, you're a big boy. Like, I assume that you can make decisions with some rationale and logic based on what's best for you. And I have no ill will towards you. Good luck. Genuinely. Like that's, I'm not saying that sarcastically. I'm genuinely saying I wish you the best. When guys leave the Iron Council, they send me a message occasionally and they say, hey, Ryan, I've appreciated the time, but I've got to go because of ... Hey, man, we've really enjoyed having you here. You've added so much. Thank you for being part of this. I hope it served you. I wish you the best on your journey. And that's not a clever tagline. That is genuine. Like, I want you to succeed, whether it's here or somewhere else. And that allows me the opportunities to drive on without any guilt or remorse about that individual leaving.
Yeah. And if you don't mind me tagging a tactical idea to your tactical idea.
I do
mind. You do mind?
Yes.
Okay, forget it. Let's move on. It was really great though, guys.
All
Just
right.
want to let you know.
If it's great, then I suppose we can hear it.
Okay. Grab a book. Whatever book it is that just moves and inspires you. And you want to pull and you want to see if they're like-minded, if they're on the page of having a growth mindset, just buy them the book and say, hey, when you're done reading this, let's talk. I've used that multiple times, whether it's As a Man Thinketh or Buy Them Sovereignty. You can buy Sovereignty. Actually, you're out of stock, aren't you, of Sovereignty, the book?
Yeah, but there's this little website that just started up. It's called Amazon, Amazon. And you just type in Sovereignty and it'll pull right up. It's incredible. Have you seen it? It's incredible.
Yeah. Okay. So buy them Sovereignty and say, hey, read this. Let me know what you think. That's a really clever way to see if you guys are on the same page or not.
Have you ever run into any issues on this, Kip? Because I actually haven't done that to the degree that you have. So have you ever run into any issues like, what are you trying to say, bro? And them getting upset about that at all?
No, I mean, because most people, I don't think those individuals are the ones I wouldn't have given the book to anyway.
Because I don't even think they're ready. Yeah, that makes sense.
For sure.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Because
I was just curious if you ever get pushback.
Wrong. Yeah. Oh, something's wrong with me. He thinks I need to change, and that whole craziness. Right. Yeah, for sure.
So you feel,
and I think a lot of people are that way, right? It's like, I've seen that multiple times.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
What's wrong with me? Why do you think I need it? Why can't you accept me the way I am? Yeah.
Yeah. Another thought along, so I'm going to tag on to yours, which tagged on mine, which tagged on yours. We're just going to keep going on this question indefinitely.
Yeah.
You could even say, hey, man, like, let's read this book together. I was recommended this book by so-and-so, and I think we should read it together. Like, why don't we read a chapter, and then we'll go to lunch, and then in a couple of weeks, we'll read another chapter or two, and we'll go golfing, and we can talk about it. Man, do it together. That might take some of the threat off as well, and it might help you coach that individual. Lots of stuff you can do here. So
there you go, guys. All right, Fahad Khan.
By the way, Kip, sorry, I got to interrupt you.
Yep.
Besides the commentary that you bring to the Ask Me Anything, I am so grateful after last week that you were the one reading the names, because I like to give you a hard time about that, but some of these guys, I'm like, what? Where did this name come from? I have no idea how to pronounce this. Like, I don't even feel like I can speak English when I look at some of these names. It's crazy. So you do a better job than I thought you did. I just want to make sure you're aware of that.
Well, it's only because you don't see the names, so you have no idea.
That's true. We don't know.
The
only person that knows is that guy or the other guy who's named that same name.
Totally. And I actually have wondered sometimes if guys like change their name on Facebook to something difficult and then submit a question, then change it back so they know.
Hey, guys, April Fools, like, I have some good things planned for Kip, so let's be in touch.
Yeah, that's funny. All right, Fahad. Maybe. Yeah. How do you recover from a stagnant year? I can't say that 2019 was a bad year, but it definitely wasn't a year to forget. Those years where you just didn't go the entire way. In every facet of life, I just couldn't take the next step. Not that it was a horrible year, just not a year where I'd go better or anything or improved anything really.
All right. So I'm going to pull up my calendar here real quick. And this podcast is released on the 24th. Yes, the 24th. What that means, according to my calculation here and Google Calendar, is that we still have 7 days before the year is over. So the year is not a total waste, my friend. You have 7 days. Consider this a rebuilding year. All right. On a sports team, sometimes teams have bad seasons. And what do they say? We're rebuilding. We're rebuilding right now because 2020 is going to kick ass. This can be you. I'm not saying you're going to drastically alter the course of your life in the next 7 days, but I am saying you can tee yourself up for it. So go back and do an after action review of the year. What went well? What didn't go so well? What did I do? What did I accomplish? What didn't I accomplish? What would I have liked to have accomplished? Where did I thrive? Where did I fall behind? And most importantly, what am I going to do about it? Because here's how you make 2019 a complete waste of 365 days. You don't learn anything from it. And you're like, 2019 sucked. That's how you make 20 exactly. That's how you make 2019 a waste of time. Instead, say, man, I got beat up. I got banged up. It doesn't sound like this guy did, but I got banged up. I got bruised up. I got beat up a little bit. Okay, regroup. What did I learn? Come up with a new plan, then re-engage with your life and get going. The framework you use, Fahad, because you're in the Iron Council, and even if you're not, you can use this framework, the 12-week battle plan. Do an after-action review of the year and spend the next 7 days battle planning the hell out of 2020 and get ready because January 1st, we hit the ground running. Yeah. And that's what I'd suggest.
Yeah. The only thing I'd add, bust ass for the last week.
Totally.
If you weren't working out, work out every day before the year's over. Work out some kinks. Like, yeah. And by the way, there's no such thing as tomorrow, by the way. It's a word that represents something that does not exist. All you have is right now. So you know what? Live in the present. If there's unfinished things that you have not addressed in relationships, address them in the next week. Get complete with everything. If there's something you've been holding back or whatever, address it. Do it all in the next week. And then that way you're hitting the year solid. And most importantly, don't look at this is what I'm going to accomplish in 2020. Look at it as this is what I'm going to accomplish by end of first quarter.
Yep. I'm glad you said that because I don't want people to wait till January 1st to do anything. So yeah. I am glad that you said that. Excellent. Let's take one, maybe two more.
Okay, sounds good. Chase Saxton.
How many do we have? How many do we have left?
We have too many.
Okay. Let's take one or two more.
Good.
I think we've got a time delay on our audio here. I would just say I said take one or two more.
Okay, sounds good. Chase Saxton, advice for a man about to be a stepdad to two kids, ages 3 and 5. Do you know if Chase has kids already?
I don't know. I don't know. Well, I'm not a stepfather, so I can't give you that advice. But what I would say is I know there's some nuances and some dynamics that are going to make it difficult, right? Like you're going to have mother bear who's going to be a little bit more protective, and the line of where you discipline and where you don't is going to be muddied compared to a biological child. And that may change over time. In fact, I all but guarantee that it will, is that you guys will get used to each other. You'll have conversations. The boundaries will be established and you'll know exactly where you stand. But I would say honor the boundaries unless that you did with her, that you've agreed upon with her. So if there's a boundary that you have, but you haven't agreed upon it with her, then it's probably there's no cohesion there, if you will, right? It's not a mutual boundary. It might be your boundary, but it's not her boundary. And that's where the problems arise. So the boundaries with disciplining and how you're going to raise the kids and how you're going to discuss with them important discussions and sensitive conversations, those all need to be talked about and understood where the boundaries are and how they will be played out with her, your wife, prior to you engaging in maintaining the boundaries that you have in your mind.
Yeah, totally. I'll just speak from experience.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. My wife and I, our hardest issues with this is not communicating boundaries, making assumptions of what the boundaries are. And then that way, when it comes up, we're not on the same page. So not being intentional ahead of time to establish what the boundaries are and our approach to enforce them. That's problem number one that we have. And I say we have because it is a constant struggle.
Can I say one thing before you get to number two? With you brought something up with your intentionality regarding boundaries. I think the reason most men don't do that is because it's an uncomfortable conversation. Right? Because anytime you're talking about, of course, because anytime you're talking about boundaries, it's likely that you're talking about it in the context of your stepchildren doing something you don't agree with.
Yep.
And she's naturally going to be more of a mama bear because who are you to tell her how she's going to raise her kids? So you're like, oh, man, like I don't even want to have that conversation. And so you think avoiding it will free you of a burden of having this discussion and then potentially putting rifts and barriers in the relationship. I promise you guys, just like we talked about earlier, short game, long game, you're playing the short game, meaning you don't want to have the conversation because it's uncomfortable and she'll be mad and you'll be mad and it'll be hard. It doesn't have to be that way, by the way. That's the short-term thinking. The long-term thinking is I'm going to have this conversation peacefully, respectfully, with the goal of helping and serving our kids. And I know that this will serve us over 5, 10, 18, 20 years. That's the long game you should be looking at.
Yeah, totally. I think the other issue that can arise is the benefits of parenting styles that a man and a woman brings to the table. But by default, because you have non-biological kids involved, there's going to be assumptions that, oh, well, he's this way because they're not his kids. When in reality, you could be that way because you are a man, period.
Sure.
And so it becomes a slippery slope where we start looking for evidence that, oh, well, he's aggressive or whatever because they're not his kids. When in reality, it could just be because you're a man. And so you and your wife really need to get on the same page of what does mom and dad bring to the table that benefits our kids, and that they are different, and it is beneficial that they are different and not exactly the same. Because by default, and this is just even for biological children for that matter, is by default, we think that mom and dad need to parent the same. And when they're not, that's a problem. I don't think that's true. I think the differences that mom and dad bring to the table are equally beneficial and both needed. And we need to celebrate those differences just like all the other differences between a man and a woman.
Well said. I think we ought to stop on that because that was good. And I think we covered the question well.
Okay.
And I got to get to jiu-jitsu.
See, I just came right from jiu-jitsu. I almost got choked unconscious while doing a move. I wasn't even training.
Nice. Well done. That was
great.
I would have liked to have seen that.
To the island. Yeah.
Bubba would have liked to have seen that too, I'm sure, at his hands.
Coming for you, Bubba.
Well, I went this morning too, so I just went up to you again. Because this is my second training of the day, man.
2 a day.
Yeah, man. I'm getting serious about this. I think I'm going to put minimum 4 days a week in.
Love it.
It's time.
That's perfect.
Time. Yeah, man. All right, let's close things out. Tell the guys how they get a hold of us and buy our stuff and everything else.
Yeah. So first off, join our circle. We have a circle called the Iron Council, which is an elevated individual.
It's a better circle. It's a better circle.
It's a superior circle. So you can join the Iron Council. By the way, there's a bunch of guarantees that come with joining the Iron Council. One, you'll make more money each year.
Stop.
Your testosterone levels will increase.
There's an attorney listening right now, I'm sure of it, and he will hold us accountable for that. I wish it wasn't the case, but just stop, please. Save me. All right, go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead with the guarantees.
Okay. All right. Join us in the Iron Council. Learn more, orderofman.com/Iron Council. And of course, join us on Facebook if you haven't already. That's facebook.com/group/Order of Man. We might have a few positions open for Legacy, June 11th through the 14th, 2020. If you are interested in that young man and older man event, grab your nephews, grab your sons,
I don't like the way that
have
sounds.
more or less a rite of passage. Does that sound weird?
Totally. We're gonna have
All
to
right.
we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board. Young man and old man. It's a father-son event, father-quasi-son event. You know what it is.
I just don't want to rule out the guys that like want to bring their nephew, right? So
yep, bring your nephew, bring somebody you mentor. It's cool, but yeah. Biological stepson doesn't matter. Sorry, I keep interrupting you today.
It's fine.
I think there's also a delay in the audio.
I think there is as well. So I'm like pausing. I'm like pausing a breath before I talk. So
we all know, Kip, that you are awkward, but you are exceptionally awkward today. But we'll write it up to the delay in audio.
Yeah, it was the audio, not me.
All right.
Okay.
Cool. Did we get it all?
Swag.
I think we got it all.
Yeah. Well, swag, store.orderofman.com. Grab your gear.
Perfect. That was the most horrific ending to our Ask Me Anythings No, I'm not blaming it on you. I kept interrupting you. We got this time delay. Like it didn't go well. So we'll shore that up, guys. Hey, just want to let you know I appreciate you. Kip, of course, appreciate you as well, and always your perspective, your insight. We think differently in a lot of ways and similarly in a lot of ways. I think that's what makes this so valuable. Guys, appreciate you being on this path. Every day I'm getting articles and information and alerts about some gender dysphoria, or men are this and men are that, and toxic masculinity and tyrannical patriarchy, and it seems like it's coming a million miles an hour, and this is the resistance, if you will. And I feel like sometimes it's the resistance, and other times I feel like it's the assault, right? So I really appreciate you being in this battle, on this mission. It's very, very important that we reclaim and restore masculinity for ourselves, for our boys, for our wives, for humanity altogether, and couldn't be more proud to stand with you. All right, guys, we'll let you get going. We'll be back on Friday. Until then, go out there, take action, become the man you are meant to be.